He's a published author of a 154-page, five-star paperback, large print book titled From Reversal Filmmaking to God's Bedroom and Back, The Untold Story of the Nollywood Revolution, selling right now on Amazon.com. His book documents 30 years of experience as assistant director, screenwriter, producer, director, and video editor since the mid-90s through early 1990s till date. Most of his innovative contribution to filmmaking in Nollywood, Nigerian filmmaking industry, is well acknowledged because he was one of those that built and delivered Nollywood to the world. No wonder he has always longed to write this very book that I'm talking about, which enabled him to understand the impact of CD, DVD distribution, cottage and big cinema exhibitions through to digital streaming today. So the big question will be, how did all this packaging help grow industries, or how they've been faring in terms of helping the Nigerian filmmaker to excel in whatever he's doing. So welcome, Mr. Mathew Simpa, to Film Talk, a Film Lab Nigeria film education conversation powered by We Entertainment Productions, Lagos.
Thank,
Welcome.
yeah, thank you.
Which of these combination, has really served the Nigerian filmmaker from CD, DVD to cottage and big screen cinemas or streaming sites?
I don't really see myself as an expert on the industry. Of course, I'm just trying to learn the ropes myself because technology is fast catching on. But there was a foundation, and the foundation was laid in the mid '80s. That was in 19 between 1986 and 87 or thereabout till early '90s. Now, if you have read my book, you would get the story. I had just finished film school then, and I joined this company known as Mesh Films Limited. And they had done some movies on Super 8mm films. Of course, that one could not even get into the standard cinema theaters then, like the National Theatre, Super Cinema, and Casino Cinema. So they now decided to go on 16mm. And it was at that point I joined. So I contributed my knowledge. Together, we were able to do a couple of reversal films that were even exhibited at the National Theatre to packed houses. I believe that this actually encouraged people to begin to think differently about filmmaking, because as at that point, you needed to have tons of money to be able to do movies. And of course, you needed to go abroad to process your films. And this took like some time, maybe months. Sometimes the films get lost in transit. But we were able to shoot this thing through the ENG technology. What was used for electronic news gathering then was this Super 8mm reversal stocks. So because of that, they had a standby lab at the NTA and some other places like that where you could easily, process these films and show. That was before the time of video, but it was still around when we went into film production. So we borrowed this technology and we were able to do quite, some outstanding films like that, which were shown at the National Theatre. From then, the idea now came, why don't you put it on video? In fact, right now I'm beginning to wonder why we too did not think of putting it on video then. But then you needed what was known as telecine to convert it to video. It was a very cumbersome technology then. So we weren't even thinking that way. But thank God for the likes of Arumire and Adi Ajibade, also known as Abbas, who went the whole gamut and did something on video. And, by the time they took it to the theaters and people saw that it was clear on the screen, so to say, they thought, this one would also serve now. So they began, the production and exhibition of video films. Then naturally it moved to, the wholesale, production of films on, video and all that. And well, today, the rest is history, like they say. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Okay, let's go down to the specifics of what is really reversal film technology.
Yeah, like I said, reversal technology was like the forbearer of video. Now, when television came, the video technology was just beginning to be developed. So they had these cumbersome television cameras that were used in the studios and they were locked in studios. So, but of course, as at that time, cinema had advanced to a stage where they had even, small cameras that they could use for documentaries. And then they were using these cameras, 16mm cameras, to shoot on the field. Anytime news broke, they could easily take these, portable cameras to shoot these, events and process within hours, and then have them ready for the news. You get? So that particular stock was known as reversal. It's
Okay.
similar to what we had as a Polaroid. Maybe you know Polaroid photographs then.
Yes.
Polaroid at Instamatic, you just photograph and anything comes up by itself. You don't take it to the lab. So it was just like that. It was used to gather news back then.
Okay. As given all these formats, of production format or a hard way where you package film and sell, how has that in any way curbed piracy? I mean, look at streaming now. I believe that people are still pirating streaming films. I don't know.
So all these
Yeah.
films on Netflix and all that, before you know it, they are out there, and people get to watch them without even go to Netflix. I must confess, I don't even have Netflix subscription, but I have watched some of these films somehow. Sure, you get. So we cannot eradicate piracy, but what I think we want to do is build some structures that will make it possible for an investor to recoup his money and make ROI before the hawks come on and begin to pirate. Back then, during the time of CD, piracy was still on. Even when we were doing celluloid, piracy was on. It's just that it was not as rampant. If you go down memory lane, you remember that there was a time Baba Salah alleged that somebody stole his film, and it was pirated. So it's something that will always be with us, especially with digital technology now. So what we just need to do is minimize it and find a way to, put money in the pocket of those who are suffering and trying to put, these things together in movies.
Yeah. My next question will be: how has storytelling changed in recent times when skit making has become like a main source for everybody? And I've noticed that maybe even the skit itself, they are also dying now. So I don't know what's going on. How is storytelling faring in all this atmosphere?
Actually, my wife watches all these things a lot, but I hardly watch them because I'm not really keen on what I'm seeing. I don't like what I'm seeing. There's no structure. You just see somebody takes camera because, of course, you have camera on your phone, or you can go to Duma to anywhere and buy a video camera, and then you can shoot whatever and put it on. Most of the time, all they just use to gain attention is sensationalism. They don't really tell stories that will stand the test of time, and I think it's really not good for the audiovisual arts form, because they are not really doing art. They are just looking for money. A lot of them have become very rich, and that's all they will ever have. I believe that it will come to a time when this fad will go out. Now let's go back in history. If you read the history of film production very well, you discover that is where film making actually started from. That's where the cinema started from. There's something they used to call vaudeville.
Vaudeville.
That's where it started. And then after that, they now discovered they could do short films, like maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, which they will quickly show in cinemas. In fact, as a matter of fact, back when we started, if you wanted to shoot a film, you buy your films in cans. They came in cans, the film stocks. So at most, you could get 10 minutes out of, a can. And when you now edit, you know what you will get. So they were actually, doing those short things, and after some time, they now discovered that the short form could not be sustained. It was not sustainable, and that was where the feature film idea came in. I believe that after some time, we will go back to, the way it used to be. People will begin to take storytelling seriously. Even when you watch some feature films that are done today, people don't really pay attention to storytelling. They just look at story, just write it anyhow, and then they put it down. Well, they have means of distributing it, and that is what people get to see. To me, storytelling has been adversely affected by the proliferation of skit making and all that.
In 2014, he produced Out of the Box, which I've read in news reports that it revolutionized gospel movies. Can you tell us a little bit about how did that drop in the ocean, cause so much sensation?
The thing is, you never know when you are going to do something that will, cause any ripple or anything. When I was doing it, I wasn't really having it in mind that it was going to affect anything. But the thing is, I have always had this idea that movies are done in a particular way, not in some ways that some people assume. You know, worldwide, filmmaking has what is known as conventions and all that. So I just took time. I did my, movie as a Christian movie, but not the kind of things you will see the likes of Mike Bamiloye doing. The acting was always stale, and then it would be so long, and then they didn't pay attention to compression of time. They didn't even think much of film language. But by the time it came out, and people, some of them that still came close to me, said, this one is different. They said it didn't even look like a Christian film, as if a Christian film was supposed to be anything but a film. But we thank God, that at least it made some impact. So I think it has affected storytelling in evangelical filmmaking, because when you even see what Mount Zion does now, it's not like what they did during the time of Lost Forever and all that. They are much more matured now, and even a lot of other.
I see a lot of sophistication now
Mm,
in their
not
movies.
not just in terms of equipment, but in terms of presentation.
Yeah. Well, I'm still talking to screenwriter, producer, director, and editor Mathew Simpa. I'm so happy that you came on this interview. How come family genre stories seem more appealing to you than action or adventure movies, among others, given your outside the box and Ito Okunri, which is a Yoruba movie? Ito Okunri.
Okay, no problem. Now, to answer your question, the fact is, it's more a matter of convenience than any
Okay.
other thing. Now, of course, as a filmmaker, I've never really had anybody giving me much money to do anything. So I've always had to scrounge here and there to do my movie. So whatever is convenient to do per time is what I do. I have written at least a couple of, non-family oriented film scripts. Back in the days, I did Shodabe. I did another story. I can't even remember the title now. Scorpion. But it was something, maybe Scorpion. I can't even remember. But they were on celluloid, and they were detective, stories. You understand? There is even a detective story that I wrote. There was a time I put it on some WhatsApp group. I just extracted a few pages from it and put it on to show how I write my screenplay. So I can write all these stories, but then where's the fund to produce them? You just go that what is convenient is what you end up doing. If I get somebody to give me good money, of course I can even try and attempt science fiction, but where's the money?
People like you have built so much portfolio. I usually ask a lot of Nollywood movie makers, why is it that it's so hard for one, two, three movie makers to come together and approach a bank based on their portfolio, based on their credibility, and get money to do a movie, a better movie? Because I know from what you told me, as a seasoned, intellectualized person, you want to do good movies, just the funding that is the problem. Secondly, why is it that people like you, with so much that you've done in the past, cannot approach international organizations to give you money?
It's a very tough question. Now, let me tell you, there's something I am involved in now. Now, I think it was 28 September or thereabout. Was it? Yeah, it must be September or October. I can't remember. September. We had a meeting in Lagos. It was called Film Producers Summit. So people across platform, across guilds and associations came together. We said we wanted to find a common ground to begin to work towards maximizing opportunities and all those things. So we had a lot of talk, we discussed. In fact, I advocated for a kind of floating a big organization that we can now use to access funds, and do mega movies instead of all these individual efforts that are not really making much impact. So it sounded good, and we were even broken into summits. I don't want to go too much into detail, but what has really happened, as I've seen it, is people are much more interested in individual efforts than in joint thing. I don't know. A lot of people tend to think that when you join forces in Nigeria, it doesn't work. They think that one person or the other will betray. But I don't know. I think, well, this is one thing I like to do. I like to look on the brighter side. APC is a conglomeration of how many parties now? And they've been able to hold the country for how many years now? So if they could do it, we can also do it. But as I stand now, I've not really seen anybody among fellow filmmakers who is really very keen on that. Though what we are doing is still on the drawing board. I'm hoping that it will work. Once it works, it will help us. If I have 5 million, then you have 5 million, another person have 5 million, and so on and so forth. One, we pull this money together. Then when we do it, many more people will get money, I mean reward, than just one person doing film. And a lot of times, these people that do all these big things you get about, you complain about it yourself. They pay peanuts to talents, and they are the only ones who smile to the bank. So the wealth is not circulating. I hope we get past all this, primordial way of doing
Interest.
things. Yeah.
I find these two movies, Out of the Box and Itokori, is that what you call
And
it? What's the big that there are two family stories, but what's the difference in terms of storytelling themes, structures? Well, I don't want to talk about cinematography and the audience perception. These departments, how are they similar or different, and how are they faring out there?
well, Itokuri is pretty dated. I'm sorry, Outside the Box is pretty dated now. But when it came out, it was well received. It was on Iroko TV, YouTube back then, and it had critical, reviews. Then when it now went round some Christian TV stations, people received it very well. Itokuri is not out yet. In fact, we
Okay.
are just planning on the premiere. God helping us on the 16th of December in Lagos. But the structure of the two films are not similar. The only similarity that they have is that they are based on family. Now, in the first one, Outside the Box, we had a couple that started out well. The wife was loving, the man was also ambitious. They were trying to, make life together. But along the line, misfortune struck the man. And then the woman now becomes the breadwinner of the family. And then, of course, it gets to a point through pressures and all those things, the woman just turns around and decides she cannot carry the burden. And then there's rift and big brats and all that. But eventually the woman realizes that she has no choice than to just support her husband. And of course, when she does so, all went well that ended well, Abi, so to say, if I can say that. Then in Itokunrin, it's actually a very different thing entirely, in that we have a woman who is aggressive, who torments the husband and who abuses the husband, not just psychologically, but physically. She beats the man, really beats the man. And then the man has to find a way to save himself from the woman. So, how does he save it? I won't let the cat out of the bag, but he saves himself through a creative, very simple, creative way. And of course, the woman now knows that, of course, the man will always be the man. Then there's also a twist to it. Along the line, a young lady comes in that falls in love with the man, so to say. And it is actually this young lady that helps the man to, deliver himself from the abusive wife. My father told me that story a long time ago. So it was just a simple story he told me, and then I, added a few things to it to make it what it is today.
Okay, in terms of cultural development, I mean, these are observations of your environment, if I'm also say from your father. What has changed? A woman succumbed to the husband and, played the wife role very well. At the point she said, no, I'm tired. Then this other one, tortured the husband from the beginning, and the husband found a solution. How could you compare the two situations in 2014 and 2022 culturally?
Yeah, in 2014, women were just becoming more empowered, even all over the world. It now became the norm that women were earning more than the men. And a lot of men were losing their, earning power. Some men were losing their jobs, and, it was really telling on the family. So I tried to explore that to see what effect it will have on an average family. If a man who works and brings in the money suddenly loses his money, how would the wife take it? Now, I spoke to some people around me, and I discovered that not a few men were going through that kind of situation. So I tried to put that into it. But, possibly around that time too, some men were being abused by their women, but it was not very much in the news. What we were hearing mostly was men abusing men, women, men being wicked and all that. But if you will notice, you discover that for some time now, men have been speaking out too. You get me? Men are also saying that women abuse you, and women are also saying it too. Even online, you get some videos talking about women abusing their men. So I just tried to explore this. No, not as much as I would have wanted to, because of budgetary budgetary
which is why I want to ask you the next question. What is the fate of a family now that gender roles seem to be flipping and people are seem to be taking advantage of certain situations to inflict oppression on their spouses and emotional abuse and physical abuse? What's the fate of the family in this context?
I don't know. My wife works in the Ministry of Women Affairs, and she's in charge of the child department. And she handles a whole lot of these cases. In fact, I have a script that I've written now that kind of documents what she does in a fictional way. But when you consider the story you hear from her every day, you will be very skeptical about the future of the family. So much dysfunctionality. People don't seem to believe in family values again. Children disobey parents. Husbands run away from their wives. Wives also don't want to stay in one place and all that. So, but well, the thing is somehow, between the majority that are heading in the wrong direction, there are still some people who uphold deep family values. And maybe along the line, these people will still be able to save the day. For example, I really value, family very well. I don't like dysfunctionality in the family. I don't like disharmony in the family. And it's what I always do. I try to bring harmony between my children and I and my wife. I've always been happy about one thing, that the main thing that causes trouble in families don't cause trouble in my own family. I and my wife, we don't fight over money. A few days ago, one of our children called the mother and said he needed money. So the mother sent some money. Then he now called later and told me that he needed some money. I said, have you forgotten that I and your mommy, we pool resources together? And of course, the mother had also told him. So what we want to give you is what we have already given you. If I had done differently, of course, as a child, that would give him an idea that he can always, come between us. But because we have that understanding, we decided to just let it slide like that. So if families begin to realize that the society actually starts with the family and that a good family would also translate to a good society, I think will make a lot of difference. But the prognosis is really bad, so to say.
Sorry about that. I know we all experience it around. So now, okay, you talk is about romance between a younger woman
Yes,
and
that's
an
right.
older man who
Yeah,
uses that to escape uh, torture or oppression by the wife. There are two issues in Itonkori:
yes,
romance and
mm,
family.
yes,
And
and that,
yeah, in movie production we have genres where you could
yes,
have romance as a genre, you could
mm,
have family as a genre. But here, this is a mix,
yeah.
So, what has that movie gained or lost in terms of trying to merge the two genres?
Well, the thing is, actually, I learned something somewhere online. I can't even remember exactly now. I think it's stage 32 or so. They say that the tendency now is for people to want to go for multi-genre stories. For example, I could just have written a story between that young man and the old man, and that young lady and the old man. But of course, that would just be one straight line story. So
Okay.
why don't you just mix everything? So anybody, for example, if social workers come and watch the movie now, they have something to take home. They have something to talk about. Then feminists too. In fact, I invited the kind of feminist to the premiere. I hope she comes. If she comes, I'm sure she's going to really talk seriously about the movie, because some people may not even believe that it is true that men can get that kind of treatment from a
Mhm.
woman. So it's got that you want to, touch as many aspects as possible so that it can, really hit home.
In terms of men getting abused, it's usually emotional. In terms of women getting abused, most of the time it could be, physical. So people
Yes.
don't really see why how men are abused. So that's the problem. Okay, you're now working with your head of department film production of Ben Auto Entertainment.
No, that's
This
history. I'm no more with Ben Otto. In fact, in between time, I have been a producer at a TV station, and of course, I consulted for a TV station. I'm now on my own. So, but the thing is, I still have a relationship with Ben Otto. This movie, actually, Itokunrin, was funded by Ben Otto. So, but I'm no longer actively working for them.
Okay, so but that's a serious collaboration for me. We were talking about funding. I mean, if business can come together with the film industry, then there could be a way out. So, how would you recommend that kind of collaboration between business and film?
Well, the thing is, to start with, we need to understand that film is business. They say there's no business like show business. To me, most of us in Nigeria still don't understand that filmmaking is business, and they tend to look at it as it is play, play, play. When we were growing up, they say, "I want to go and watch play," and even in some places, they'll still tell you there's a play going on TV, or they look at it that way. I've worked with some people that their idea of how the film business is to be done is so ridiculous that you now be wondering, how can people be thinking like this? Now, in the first place, when you want to do a movie, you have to know that there are things you must put into consideration, like contracts and agreements and all those things. And you discover that by and large, a lot of Nigerians, at least those that I've related with, they don't take these things serious. You get to work with some people, you work for some time, they don't even sign any agreement with you, even though you have an understanding that there should be an agreement. They evade, they try to run away from this. But if we want to come together and do projects together, first we must put everything down on paper, black and white. As a matter of fact, I'm secretary to the committee co-productions of that film producer summit that I told you about. In the report that we sent in the committee, we recommended that there should be proper documentation, proper paperwork before any co-production deal is supported. And we recommended that the production summit, that is when we finally sit down and come together and formalize our coming together, should be involved in all these things. They should check all the agreements, sign the T's and dot the I's. How do you say it? So that there won't be any a chance for anybody, breaching agreements. It's always because of breach of trust and all that things collapse. But banks do it. They come together. Chartered accountants, they come together. In fact, you can't, as a chartered accountant, have a company on your own now. It's always done in partnership and all that. Even law firms, they do it. So why can't we do it? I think we need to seriously sit down and not be afraid of, putting things down on paper. So maybe a lot of people, they fear that in future, they can take me to court and all that. But if you want to go far, you must be willing to go through all this.
It aches me a little bit. I mean, a lot. I fear for Nigerian arts because if, for example, if people cannot afford to trust and collaborate, it goes down to the fact that we cannot even run our guilds, film
Yes.
guilds, very well. And that's a big issue. If you cannot run the guilds well, how will you now run businesses together? So it's a big problem. It's a very serious
How
problem.
we are going to solve it, but that's the only way out. When you watch the average American, Indian film, even Korean films, you see there will be like 10 producers. There will be like 5 executive producers. You have co-producers. So you have some companies coming, more than 2, 3 companies coming together to do these projects. So are they not human beings like us? I don't know why we have problems like that. But I think it's just because we do not really quite understand what gains we can make from joining together. The Yorubas have this saying that it is when you clasp the hands together that you can use it to beat your chest. You can't beat your chest with one finger now. People will look at you as you are a dunce. So we need to really reconsider the guilds. In fact, it's another story entirely. Well, it is what it is, like they say.
But you see, the Yoruba wood, let me use the word Yoruba wood. There used to be this collaborative effort where you could even do something on creative for somebody. I mean, pro bono, and somebody else will sort something for you. Pro bono. Why is it that spirit has not been built to manifest in the real business itself?
I think they still do it among themselves. And of course, at the point I was beginning to regret that I didn't stick to them much longer than I did. Anytime any one of them had problem, they will come together and work on movies for the person. Now you could easily approach a Yoruba person and say, this is my problem. I don't have much money. Can you help me do this? And it usually worked for them. I don't know about now, but I think to some extent they are still doing it. It's just that they don't do it in a big way. That is just the only thing that is missing. I wouldn't know for the other woods and all that you have out there.
During pre-digital era, you helped in doing a solo film called Jangulabi. That was 1988. How did all that experience, how did that experience build you up, to today where, I mean, If I to talk about your experience, I would say you're really filmmaker because you started from celluloid, you knew about the, reverse technology. How did this experience really build you to become who you are today?
Well, the thing is, back then, we were really using, so to say, maybe Stone Age technology, we will call it now. It wasn't like this one
Some
that
people,
you
some people will say, cellular was the thing.
Yes, but of course, compared to what we have now, this technology wasn't commonplace. You
Mm,
couldn't easily, though at the time I bought a camera myself, a Super 8 camera, but it wasn't something you could easily take and use like you could do these days. So you had to learn how to use all those things. You had to learn the hard way. Now I remember having to load films in what was I've forgotten the name for it now. The casing that you put the film when you are mounting it on the camera. It's not something you do in the open. There was this bag, black bag, in which you
mm.
put it. You put I think it's blimp or something. You put the film. You now thread it through it without looking, and you won't look at it. You feel it, and then you put it and thread it, and you must thread it rightly. Otherwise, it will jam in the camera, or you do it in a dark room. So you understand. So it was that kind of orientation I had. I never had the opportunity to do things as easily as people coming into the industry have now. So I learned the hard way, and of course, it has helped me. And it also helped me to be able to do much with little. If I have like 5, 6 million, what I would do may even beat what somebody with 20, 30 million would do, because I know my way around. When it comes to even editing, I know what is finalized, all these things. I learned, everything I needed to learn while we were doing reversal film, and that is still impacting on me now.
Well, I'm still talking to screenwriter, producer, director, and editor Mathew Simpa, whose experience can be really, really, really enriching. Which among the roles, screenwriter, producer, director, cinematographer, and editor, perhaps acting, are your favorites? Which one are your strong points?
Actually, if I had my choice, my favorite would be screenwriting, because I could just stay in my house, write my script, and send it out without needing to interact with anybody. Unless, of course, if they ask me to come on the set and then do the rights and all that, that one would really help me to avoid a whole lot of conflicts. But because of the country in which we found ourselves, that's why I wanted to do everything. But I started out as an assistant director, like I said. But even before then, I was already trying my hands at writing. I wanted to be a writer. But when I came out, I discovered that there was no role for writers. Then later, of course, the opportunity came and I wrote. Now, when we really want to talk about the one that I really think I can, flow in more, I think directing will be better for me, because, of course, it's the ultimate in the whole chain. The film is actually the director's film. It is the
Mm.
director that conceives of the whole thing and gives shape to it and all that. So I'd really like to be a director and be in full control, be able to determine all that will go in. Because if I write my script and give it to somebody, the person may not direct it well. As a matter of fact, I didn't direct it all, and I think I could even have done some things differently if I was the one directing. So that's the way it is.
What's the evaluation of those roles in terms of skills, education, labor rights, and guilds organization in Nigeria? How do you evaluate those
Oh,
skills from screenwriting through to
oh.
cinematography, through to editing, in terms of skills, education, labor rights, and guilds organization in Nigeria?
Well, judging by what you see on screen, I don't know how to really thumbs up for screenwriting. For example, I watched Blood Sisters. Is that not the film that this late guy produced? But I'm wondering what kind of a film is this? I'm sorry to say, oh, I don't understand how you could write a thing like that and put it on screen. In a big place like that, that kind of crime was committed. No, I don't know. Maybe I have not really moved so much in those circles to know just how much crimes can be done and then not found out. So I just discovered that the screenwriting is kind of weak. You get my point. I've watched some of those movies like that, and I don't know. I've not really seen anyone among them that I can say the screenwriting is really superb. But when it comes to directing, I think directing is no, it's okay. A lot of directors get their acts very well. Then, in terms of editing, yeah, editing, at least for Nollywood, that is not counting Yoruwood and outside and all those things. I think editing is really something you can, thumbs up for. But when it comes to the gigs and all those things, I don't really know how they are helping their people, because though I'm not really much involved in a lot of gigs, I'm involved in just one. GEMPC, Guild of Elite Motion Picture Producers and Content Producers, so to say. So I don't know how they run the other gigs, but from what I'm hearing, from the feelers I'm getting, they really aren't doing much for themselves. Maybe ANMD is trying, but most other ones, just a few of them who are up there, they try to corner everything and then they marginalize the others.
How do we now face this issue of story writing in Nigeria? Because people complain a lot about, I mean, skill writing education is very important. You don't even have to go to campus and earn a degree before you become a writer. But how do we help storytelling in Nigeria? Because I personally complain. When I complain, people say I'm too critical. How do we help that aspect? Because that's the foundation of filmmaking. I mean, we should be telling stories. Okay, you heard about Parasite, the Korean film. You
Oh,
know, I grew up in Hollywood,
okay.
and it was a fantastic story. And in Nigeria, people keep saying, we are trying, we are facing problems. But then, what stops us from trying harder? What is the problem? Is it education? Is it willingness to do it well? What is the problem? Is it about earning money immediately, or is it the producers that are killing the writing, writing industry in the overall industry?
You have nailed it down to two key things. One is that people hastily, put out whatever they write. If I tell you that this Itokuni has been with me for like 6, 7 years now, you won't believe. It has evolved from being a short story, a short film, to being a feature-length film now. I wanted to do it as a short film long time ago, but I couldn't do it. So when the right time came, I now, expanded it, and then it became something. I have the screenplay I wrote that I told you about. It's about a woman who is helping to fight for women's rights and all that. I have already finished the screenwriting. I have done the screenplay, but some ideas came up, and then I said, okay, I will revise it. I've not even shown it to anybody. It's just between I and my wife. Here you get. I'm not in a hurry to get this thing out until I'm sure that this story is really going to have an impact. But I don't see many people doing that. I belong to some WhatsApp group like that. Some random guys will just come up and just summarize a story like that and say he has this screenplay to sell. And at the end of the day, you discover that people buy the screenplay. People like quick things in Nigeria here. We are not very much given to taking our time to do anything. Then of course, because people don't really want to pay for screenplays and stories, so there's no incentive to want to sit down and really write good stories. I've had complaints and complaints. In fact, I've been involved in a project like that. That was around 2012. And I got a story from a guy, and I said we should pay the guy just 12,000 back then. The executive producer said, no, we don't pay for stories now. I said, if you want to build a house, would you not pay for land? The story is known as property in filmmaking. It is the property. You have to pay for it. Of course, they didn't pay the guy, and it was really painful. And I think they still basically do it. Only a few people get money for their stories and screenplays. So that is kind of discouraging.
How would we now ever? We've heard about some Nigerian movies winning awards abroad, and sometimes I begin to suspect it's paid awards.
Who gave those awards? It's people coming together to award themselves. Have we won any international award? Have we won an Oscar? Have we won Film d'Or? Have we won? What awards have our films really won abroad? So until we begin to work like others work, like the Koreans have, got the whole, thing down now to an art. Until we begin to do things like that, we can't get far. Like you, I have tried to train people in screenwriting. They are not willing to even learn. They just believe that the way they do it is the way they do it. I've had some people send me scripts. They will summarize the cast, the props, and everything in the screenplay. That's during the narration. The narration is not supposed to be screen direction and all those things. They will first of all put the cast in the scene, the location, and they write jumbo. They just write things, will not really cut ice in the international stage. So I think we need to learn. We need to want to learn.
Wouldn't somebody like you want to, branch out from all this pandemonium, all this noise, and say, okay, let me have regular film storytelling and screenwriting summit once in a while?
Well, it will depend on having money. That's the thing. That's why I'm not even in a hurry to do anything now. I could easily, between I and my wife, gather maybe a few 100,000 and do something. But then, where would that get me? So I've made up my mind. I want to sit down. Anytime I'm able to come out with anything, it will be something that at least would be standard, something that even the international community can see and say, yes, this is something worthwhile.
A word of advice for the young ones that are coming and the ones that are not practicing well.
The thing is, they need to be humble. They just believe that because they make money, that makes them. No, it's not all about money. There's this Yoruba adage. Sorry, I grew up among Yoruba, so I'm more adept at their,
Where are you
language than
from?
I'm a Bira from Kogi State. So,
Oh,
they say the hand of a child cannot reach onto a tall object. Neither can the hand of an adult enter a god. Sure, you understand. So what an adult will see sitting down, the young person will have to stand up to look, even tiptoe to see it. So once they are ready to learn from us adults, once they are ready to learn from us veterans, they will make a headway. But moving close to some of them, they can be arrogant, they can be downright, asinine, and sometimes I just decide to just leave them be. I work with even some editors, and when they edit, you now wonder. Recently, I had to work with some editors like that here in Abeokuta. They paid them to do the job, but I had to even be teaching them how to edit those movies. The simple things about editing, they didn't even seem to know it. And these established editors, one of them was even said to be the best, if not, one of the best, if not the best in Abeokuta. And of course, he would not even want to listen to advice from me. So I just let him be. So they have to be humble and be ready to learn.
well, to close this interview, let me just give you a personal experience in recent times. I
Okay.
was watching STV, and they were interviewing two people, two professors. One was the first female professor in mass communication in Nigeria, and she made mention of the fact that TV now has been devalued because they value the skills of presenters and all that. And a presenter who was presenting the program now said, "Tell me what other sector in Nigeria has not lost value? Where do we go from here?"
I
especially
don't
especially
know.
for the media.
Incidentally, like I said, I worked in TV.
Yeah.
When I was at Black Drum TV, I had a running battle with the presenter. She just didn't even care about the first thing about the ethics of the profession. You understand? She was arrogant. She was not ready to take instructions and all that. So she was good when it came to presentation, but what could make the show last? She was not ready to give it, and I begin to wonder what is the cause of all this. But then, having met some of these their lecturers, some of the lecturers in these mass comm departments, I cannot but conclude that it's what they learn that they are practicing. Some of their teachers are not well baked; they are half baked, and so of course it's what they teach them that they also come to practice. So okay, yeah, every sector has been degraded and all that, but you see, one talking about television. Television is a journalistic medium, Abi. And it's supposed to be
Mm.
part of the fourth estate of the realm. If it loses
Yes.
value too, how do you now help the other sectors to regain their values? Even
You
film,
see?
so to say, is supposed to be part of we are supposed to be at the vanguard of changing society. So if we too have lost our own value, how do we now build value in the society? That's the tragedy of the whole thing. So people who want to change society are themselves not changed. Yes.
Terrible.
Ah,
Thank you so much, Mr. Mathew Simpa. We are on Facebook, like www.filmlab.ng/filmtalk. So if you go to our site, you see. Thank you so much. That's been very rich. Thank you. Do have a nice day. All right. Bye
that's you.
bye.